Well, shaking everybody. Welcome to the Orange Bloods Friday Prediction Show. I'm Jeff Ketchum, joined by Jason Sukumo, Alex Dunlap, Anwar Richardson. We are giving you our Texas at Texas Tech predictions, brought to you by Prize Picks. Use the live or the promo code Orange Bloods to is that Orange Bloods or OrangeBloods.com?
Just Orange Bloods.
Okay, just wanted to make sure to get the hookup. They will match up to 100% of your, I think, first $100 on Prize Picks. Get the hookup. Please use that promo code Orange Bloods so they know that we sent you there, and we've all been addicted to it. And we'll get into some of the plays this weekend involving Texas players that we like. But first, like that video, subscribe to the channel, get notifications. It is time for some Tech predictions. I got to be honest, I don't have a score in my head yet. Jason, I'll come to you first. I might listen to all three of you and then make my prediction. Where's your head at with this game?
Tricky game. We're thinking Hudson Card's going to be starting, so that impacts my thinking some. Obviously, on the road, hostile environment. We don't know how Texas is going to respond. They haven't been in that kind of environment this year. They didn't handle it great last year. I do like Texas in this game. I think Texas is just a better team. I'm not completely sold on Texas Tech. Yeah, they played pretty good defense, but haven't really faced great competition. North Carolina State was a pretty good team, but they're mistake prone on offense. Texas Tech is. I think that's going to help Texas. I'm not fully convinced, Ketch, that this Texas offense under Hudson Card is going to. And I felt the same way last week. I think it's going to be a struggle sometimes to just march up and down the field unless they can hit a big run by a Bijan Robinson. I mean, the thought of this offense stringing together a 12-play, 80-yard drive is going to be tough. I mean, they're going to have to hit some big pops, some big plays. But bottom line is Texas is the more talented team with Hudson Card at the helm. I still think Texas is going to win this game. I think it's going to be pretty close, and I think it's going to be a little lower scoring, I think, than people maybe envision it to be. I'm going Texas 30, Texas Tech 24, so Texas gets a 6-point win.
Oof. Oh, wow. The boards could melt down over that, Jason. Only
well,
six.
I think the whatever it's like, what is Texas, like 7-point favorites? So I mean, I'm kind of in line with that, other than being a little under what the projected total is.
Vegas sees this as like a 33-27 type game, right? Because the over and under, I think, is 60.
Yeah, that'd be right on. So yeah, so I'm at 30-24, so a little lower than that, but same margin or close to the same margin.
Well, Alex, where are you at with regards to this weekend's game at Tech?
Well, I'm with Jason, kind of. I think it probably – I saw the over-under at 61, so it's probably hovering somewhere around there. I don't think it gets there. I'm with Jason. I don't necessarily buy into all this stuff about Texas Tech all of a sudden having this elite run defense, especially not against Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson. It's just I think that's absurd to consider that as any kind of detriment to what Texas is going to want to do. As far as those guys, they impose their will. So for me, I say Texas 35, Texas Tech 21, plain Jane kind of score. I think that Texas, if it is only a 7-point spread, I think Texas will cover that. I think it's a better team. I think that they're going to come into this game a lot more focused than they were coming into UTSA, coming off of the big emotional performance versus Alabama that came down to the last second at home. Then you got to come back versus UTSA. You could tell that you could tell, especially defensively, it was not quite the attacking mindset that you saw versus Alabama. You got to figure the first game in conference, a game after they could point back to last game and say, man, you guys really look bad for about one half there. Kudos to the defense for turning it on in the second half for sure. But they need to come on stronger. I guarantee you that the coaches got up in their ass this week about coming out hot, coming out strong. So I think that the defense will look better right from the start. I think that will be detrimental to Texas Tech's chances of making this a high-scoring game. So I think that just like last week, I think to get to that 35, we're probably going to be depending on a special teams or defensive touchdown. But as we've seen this year, I mean, 2 out of 3 games, Texas has been able to get that. They're looking like an opportunistic unit in that way. So I'm going to say 35-21.
Mr. Richardson, you leaning towards one of these two predictions more than the other?
I think I might be somewhere in the middle of their predictions. I hear everything what they're saying. The tough sell for me, Catch, right now is this. I don't think Texas Tech is that good. I mean, they've got a backup quarterback. I guess it's Donovan Smith, who we mentioned in a previous video. This guy's committed 5 turnovers in 2 games, So, and as Jason pointed out in the previous video, there was also 2 fumbles that Texas Tech recovered that could have been mid-7 turnovers within 2 games. A guy who's that turnover prone at this moment, I don't care if it's at home, he's going to have to transform into something that he hasn't shown himself to be over the past couple of games. And when you're talking about all this high adrenaline, all these high emotions, that's something where you're going to see a guy like that probably more prone to make mistakes. So, I'm not really quite sold that this offense is going to be that much more dynamic than the Texas offense. I mean, yes, we may have some questions about Hudson Card, but I have more questions about their quarterback than I do about Hudson Card at this moment. At least I know that Texas can field a functional offense with Hudson Card, hide his weaknesses, and while it may not be pretty, it'll get the job done. I don't think Texas Tech has that capability or ability. This will be the best team that they've played. I'll give them a couple of points on the road. I'm going to be a little conservative. My score is going to be 31-17, but I'm just not expecting a close match. I think it's going to be something that Tech, it's close for a little bit, but at some point, I feel Texas pulling themselves away. And don't forget, at the end of the day, I know it's a new year. Texas did drop 70 on this team, and we're not talking about a team that holds a whole lot of brand new faces since last season. So I still keep that in the back of my head as well.
Tech's interesting. They've got like 45 seniors on defense. Like everybody on that team on the defensive side of the ball is a 5th or 6th year senior. So they're an older group of guys. They'll be playing with pride. I think Texas will probably struggle to put up video game numbers on offense. And look, we'll be talking about some entries on Prize Picks here in a second that may or may not reflect that. But I think I think both Alex and Anwar have Texas winning this game by 14 points. And I'm right next to Alex in that the score in my head is something along the lines of 34-20. I have a hard time believing that Texas Tech scores more points against Texas than anybody else has this season. They're not as good of an offense as UTSA in my estimation. They're certainly not as good as Alabama. And I think that where Texas may have to separate itself, a little bit like a week ago, it was a pick 6 that really put that game to bed. I think the separation in this game for Texas may come with a defensive score or a special team score. One way or the other, you feel like at some point Xavier Worthy's going to make a big play. I mean, this game officially marks the 1/3 mark of the season, and we're still waiting for Xavier Worthy to do something that looks like the best
Xavier Worthy.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going 34-20. I don't think this will be Texas being high flying on offense, but I think that they'll be a little bit like Anwar. They'll be functional and they'll run the ball and they'll make enough plays and be successful enough that I think they win this ball game. And I think in the end, it won't be necessary. It may be a little bit like the UTSA game from last week where middle of the 3rd quarter, it feels like there's still some stuff on the line, but maybe by the time we get to the middle of the 4th quarter, Texas has that 2 touchdown advantage. And I just wonder by that point if Texas Tech looks like they're going to do much on offense. If you've watched them much this season, I mean, look, they were in that game against NC State all game last week on the road. They just couldn't score any points. The game was close enough that they could reach out and touch it. And that offense just couldn't generate any points with the backup quarterback. And I think we'll see a similar type performance this weekend. Let's transition over to the entries on Prize Picks that we like the most. I'm going to start off. I don't know if Roschon Johnson's been in the game at all so far this season. I got to be honest, I haven't had any action on Roschon, but when I look about a more or less line that has me intrigued on Roschon Johnson at 43.5 yards in this game. I always err on the side of more, always. Where I miss is I go more. But that feels like a more for me.
Yeah, I mean, because here's the thing that we know that's going to go into this game with us expecting Hudson Card to start. We know not only is he going to get out of the backfield, but we know they're going to have the Wildcat that feature him. So we know that Roschon Johnson will get plenty of touches and plenty of opportunities.
He loves to pull that thing. He doesn't love handing it off to God.
Correct. You don't know what the handoff in the Wildcat looks like, but he knows how to run that damn thing. And so 43.5 yards, I'm definitely on the more bandwagon for that one, because that one that's juicy for me right there, where you know how much he's going to run the ball. And if we think how this thing is going to play out the way it is going to play out, if Texas is ahead in the fourth quarter, Roschon's going to finish off this game, and he should be able to get to that mark. I love that 43.5, by the way.
Anybody want to go below that number?
No, man, I'm close. His season average is 43.6. So I mean, they are spot on, more or less. And Texas Tech has a better defense other than Alabama than what Texas has faced. But I'm kind of like Anwar, when I'm looking at these more or less, is one of the things I've done okay on them. I do better in the NFL than college. I try to project if a team's going to be playing from behind or playing from ahead. And that's going to matter in terms of if a guy's throwing for junk yards in the fourth quarter, or, maybe Roschon picks up 15 extra yards in the fourth quarter if Texas is playing from ahead. So if Texas is playing ahead, like we all anticipate, like Almar said, I'd be inclined to go the over, but man, that more or less number is spot on what he's averaging. So I think I would maybe even just stay away from that one altogether.
Fair enough. If we go over to Bijan Robinson, there are 2 entries this week so far. At a 23.5 fantasy score and a 110.
I've always wondered, is that, I'm sorry, Catch, I didn't mean to interrupt. Sorry.
Go for it.
You can continue with the entries. I can ask after it.
I was just going to say he's 110.5 in rushing yards.
Is that fantasy point score half PPR?
It's 1 point PPR.
Yeah, if you look on this, there's a scoring chart, Alex, you can click on it.
I've just avoided those because I've never taken the time to go look. But so full point PPR 23.5.
Correct.
No, I don't think it is PPR, Catch. It's rushing yards, rushing.
No, it's receptions, 1 point.
Okay, so
yes,
full point
sorry,
PPR.
You're right. There it is.
So and it's 110.5 rushing yards. So they're basically saying 110.5 plus a touchdown. So that would put him at 17.5 fantasy points. They're saying if maybe add 3 receptions for 30 onto that is what you're going to need.
I like the Roschon number more than I like Bijan's numbers.
And you know what I think? I think I like Bijan's fantasy numbers better, believe it or not, than I like the rushing number alone, because it doesn't give me just one trapdoor via the reception volume, the possible reception volume, but it gives me the second trapdoor. It's like if he gets 2 touchdowns, he's going to smash that. So I think I would be more likely to go with the 23.5 as far as the PPR fantasy points for those reasons. I think that 110.5 is tricky, especially considering the fact, do we buy in to the idea that this run defense really is as good as they say in the Big 12? I don't buy it, but we need to at least consider it. The other thing is, as Jason mentioned earlier, I mean, with these entries, you have to consider game script. I mean, it was just like, it's why the entry on Derrick Henry versus the Bills was like, I did as many entries as I could going less on that, because I'm like, man, these guys get behind. They just, it doesn't matter if Dontrell Hilliard's hurt or whoever, they're going to bring in Hassan Haskins on 3rd downs, and that's just going to be what happens. They're not going to be able to get Derrick Henry a big head of steam. So even with the game script concerns, maybe they get him out. That would be good for Roschon. I just think if they do get ahead, that far ahead, it's got to be Bijan Robinson scoring at least a few touchdowns, catching some footballs or stuff, something like that. So I'm more interested in more on the fantasy points.
Anwar, what's your gut on that?
My gut is I was taking notes as Alex was talking. That's my gut says I'm going to trust the fantasy guy when it comes to a fantasy conversation, and I got all my notes down. So I just need one more for a parlay. Keep going, guys.
If we go to Jordan Whittington, I kind of like all of them for different reasons. So you've got Jordan Whittington, 4 receptions as an entry. You've got Jordan Whittington, 54.5 receiving yards as an entry. And then you've got 12 fantasy points as an entry. Each of us, I'm just curious, Jason, I'll go to you first. Which of the Jordan Whittington entries is sexiest for you the most?
More than 4 receptions.
It's the receptions, right?
Yeah.
Me too.
You're still
because
right?
because they're counting him for half a touchdown, and I'm not sure that you want to count on that for a guy like Witt the same way that you would for Robinson, because what do you say, 54 and 4, so in PPR that's 9.4, so they're counting him for basically and it's 12 is the more or less.
Yes, for the fantasy score.
So they're saying that he's good for just under a half of a touchdown. I mean, do you think he scores a touchdown 1 out of every 2 times they play this game? I just to me it's like with Jordan Whittington, the thing that I want to bet on, the thing that I want to not bet on in the traditional term, but the thing that well, no, I mean, just not talking about this game. I'm just talking about like in life. If I'm going to make a bet on something, I'm gonna say, look, give me the passing volume for Jordan Whittington first and foremost.
What about you, Anwar?
I like that, but just because at that point we're not attaching anything to the productivity portion of it. We're just talking about, hey, he's getting things. And look, I think when it comes to the passing game, hitting on the deep with Xavier is the big sexy thing, but the volume of what we're probably going to see from a passing attack standpoint is going to be the Jordan Whittingtons, the Jatavian Sanders, like underneath kind of stuff, with the hope that he hits the deep stuff. But to move the chains on 3rd and 4, is Hudson going try to complete a 30 or 40 yarder, or is he going to try to do a 7-yarder to Jordan and keep the chains moving? So yeah, I'm definitely with him, but I'm curious. But you don't like the fantasy point portion of it, Alex? So that doesn't appeal to you, the 12 points?
No, because like I said, I'm more interested in attaching my cart to the actual passing volume as opposed to the efficiency and the touchdown scoring, the chances of scoring the touchdown. That's all.
If he doesn't score a touchdown, he's got to go 5 for 70 or like 6 for 60, right?
Yeah.
To get to 12.
Yeah.
So
that would just be a push. That wouldn't even be
right. But I think
which isn't out of the question.
I think the fantasy under is an interesting play. I think if he doesn't score a touchdown, I think the under on fantasy points could be absolutely in play.
Is there anything on Worthy?
Yes. I saved him for last because his numbers are the most interesting. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
So Xavier's got a 14 fantasy score. He's got 68.5 receiving yards.
Yeah, they made it tough.
They've got 4 receptions. And then they're hitting me again with the 0.5 receiving touchdowns, which I have lost every week this season. I got to be down $500 on Xavier Worthy touchdowns.
So wait. Well, so their actual implied, let's just figure out their implied score. So their implied score is 4 for the receptions, 6.8 for the receiving yards. So we're to 10.8 and half of a touchdown. So 3. So basically they're getting like a half point of value on that fantasy score anyway. Like their own numbers are only projecting it to be at about a 13.5 for his fantasy score there. I mean, I think with Xavier Worthy, there's lots of paths for him to go. I mean, clearly he could go bananas, but I think that there's lots of paths for Xavier Worthy to go under that fantasy score, especially if the volume isn't there like it's been. And he doesn't have. I'll come out and say it. He doesn't have a good connection with Hudson Card.
Yeah,
he just doesn't. Those guys just don't seem like they're on the same page. I don't know if he's not running to the right spots, if Hudson's not throwing to the right spots. I mean, we know Card's an accurate guy. I'm not sure. I don't know. It just feels like they're just not really on the same page,
Technically, I think, Alex, that would be 13.85. So they're right in line with that 14.0.
Oh, I was just doing my head. It's 13. Oh, because it's 68.5.
Yeah.
All right, fine. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know any of those that I just love. I think I'd probably go receptions, it just feels like Xavier's got to have a breakout game here pretty soon. And I don't even think 5 receptions is a breakout game for him. So, and Catch, I kind of agree with you that he gets in the end zone this week. I know you've been burned 3 times, but didn't he score 2 or 3 times in this game last year? I know it's a different team, it's a different secondary, but I just feel like maybe this is the week where he has a little bit more productivity. So I would be inclined to go the more on Xavier's 4.0 receptions. And I think I would take the more on the touchdown. I think maybe he gets in the end zone this week.
Now that you're saying it, Jason, too, I'm thinking about some of the passes at the back of the end zone that been very, very close over the course of the last few weeks. You know, I mean, it isn't like he's not getting targeted in the end zone. It's been on these deep throws that they've had so much trouble connecting on.
I will probably hit the 0.5 receiving touchdowns until the damn thing hits.
I'm going to join you. Maybe I'll bring you good luck this week. Huh?
Is that receiving or is that passing plus rushing plus receiving?
It's
some kind of
receiving touchdown.
Okay, so you won't get it if it's some kind of end around or something.
I would be bitter if his first touchdown of the season is a rushing touchdown and there are no receiving touchdowns. That might put me officially on Prize Picks tilt. Real quick, I've got one. I've been keeping my eye on Prize Picks all week long because I was waiting to see if the Texas stuff would pop up. But, you know, sometimes the early lines that they're putting on there for players aren't the biggest players. Like I immediately went to Caleb Williams and his numbers weren't up early in the week. They've got so last week, the easiest, and I tried to get everybody in on this. They were setting Jalen Daniels as halftime second half numbers at 9.5. And he scored like 12 on the first drive of the second half. He had almost a 60-point fantasy game last week. And I think Jalen Daniels at 25.0 fantasy points. I'm taking the more.
I'm showing 23.5, Catch.
Did they update it and go down?
23.5.
Oh, wow. Literally.
Who is this? Jalen Daniels?
The Kansas quarterback.
Oh, okay. Right. Okay.
I'm looking at a 25 fantasy score. I've got all his stuff pulled up right now. But, you know, so that's Jason. I don't know what you're looking at.
Either way, Jason, if you got that 23.5, smash it real quick with some of these.
Absolutely. Like, it's showing me 25. That's weird.
23.5. I literally just heard talking.
Well,
Blake, our producer, saying he's showing 23.5 too.
I'm telling you that Jalen Daniels is a fantasy football monster, and 25 or 23.5, whatever the hell it shows on your screen when you pull it up, that's 12.5 points per half. That kid had 40 last week in the first half.
They've got him at 180 passing yards. So how many points would that be? Is that 18?
25 points. It's 25 points per. I don't know if it's 20 or 25 there at that one, but that 25 would be 7
per yard. So oh gosh, let me break out.
So that's 25. 1 point for every 25 passing yards, right? So that's so he's got like 7 and a third. What 7 and a third?
7 points. He's good for at least one rushing touchdown every week.
And then they got him 67 rushing yards. So you're at 13. You're at 14 roughly. So you'd need about nine more points out of him. So you assume Catch he's going to get
a couple passing touchdowns, and maybe.
I mean, he is my favorite player in college football right now. I watched him last week against who was it that they beat into the ground? Kansas of all teams.
I don't know. It's wild.
Oh, Houston.
Yeah.
They went on the road at Houston and just beat them like they stole something out of their mom's purse. So I'm Team Jalen Daniels. I'm going heavy on the more in the total fantasy score as it currently stands, whether it's 23.5 or 25. Jalen Daniels was about the only thing I got right last week. And I will be sticking with him. I don't like the passing yards, Jason. We talked about that earlier in the week. It's like at 210.5. He's playing Duke. I mean, he may go.
It's down to 180. It's down to 180.
It is? Why is my thing not updated?
It's
so
down to
weird.
it's down to 180.5.
You've been talking about him so much they know you like him, so they're adjusting.
Yeah, they're giving you
Just
these
for you.
adjusted more or less.
They're
You
like,
need to empty your cash or something.
yeah,
Cash.
exactly. I know you're not wrong. I don't know. Does anybody else, before we wrap it up, anybody else have any more picks that they love that they've kept an eye on this week?
No,
That's
I haven't even looked yet.
No.
I got
Daniels.
By the way, now I've got it. You're right. They've got Jalen Daniels at 20. Oh, my God. That's gone down this week. Who in the hell is betting on Jalen Daniels less, causing that thing to go the other way?
Well, technically, no one's betting on it, right? They're just putting in their entries.
Well, I don't know. They changed. I've
Interesting.
seen them
Pretty
adjust
interesting.
the scores based off of activity.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm all on Jalen. Literally, as soon as we're done here, I'm pairing that Jalen Daniels thing up with maybe the Xavier Worthy touchdown. And I'll ride that thing one more week. Hey, again, shout out to the sponsor on the video, Prize Picks. It's a lot of fun. We've had a lot of fun so far in the first month of the college football season. Just talking about the entries, and we've been way right, we've been way wrong, and it's part of the fun. For myself, Jason, Anwar, and Alex, thanks for watching the Friday Prediction Show. We think it's going to be a good night on Saturday for Longhorn fans. We will see you Saturday night with the post-game show, and then, of course, Monday Overreactions on Monday. Until then, you guys be good to each other. Later.